Welcome everyone to the webinar. We've got quite a turnout. There's 122 people on, over 350 registered, so I'm sure there'll be some more joining us. Thank you very much for registering. We're gonna get right into it just to maximize your time today. I'm the moderator for this webinar. My name is John Fredkove. I'm with Graco, and I would like to start out by explaining why I organized this webinar. So the last couple of months have been tough. A month or so ago, I saw what the SPFA was doing to support spray foam contractors during this time of economic uncertainty. They created a website, spfacovid19.com, which curates news, resources on how contractors can apply for loans and other helpful guidance. They even promoted this webinar on the site. So then a few days later, I get an email from one of our speakers today, Robert Naini, on how to use your resources wisely. Then I saw many of you sharing similar advice and resources on social media. And I really wanted to help to facilitate more of that. So I thought about how I could do that to help motivate people to feel a little bit better, that there's an opportunity here to work on improving our businesses and ourselves for the eventual upturn in the construction market. Even if it's just a little helpful advice on how to be more productive or how to prepare your business for the future. So that's why I organized this webinar and why I asked our speakers to cover topics that they felt could help you prepare for spray foam business success. And here we are. So today we have Robert Naini, who will talk about using your resources wisely. Bill Bilben will speak about developing your leadership skills. Kurt Riesenberg will share his thoughts on the power of industry community. And Muhammed Alibashev is going to cover biohacking for spray foam applicators. If you have a question for one of the speakers, just go to the Q&A section in the Zoom app, type your question, and we'll answer it at the end. You'll also see a few poll questions pop up on your screen as well. This webinar is being recorded, so if you need to hop off, don't worry about it. You'll get a link to watch it later. Also note that, as with all webinars, we will experience some technical difficulties or glitches, and we already have. So hopefully they're going to be minimal. Let's kick things off with Robert Naini on using your resources wisely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the value, the opportunity to be part of a panel like this and to share a little wisdom, a little insight into creating business success. And ultimately, business success is going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have their own definition for what business success looks like. We're going to have our own ideas of what we want in our lives and what creates success for us. So it's critical that we understand where we're starting from and where we're headed to begin with. So as John said, my name is Robert Naini with Spray Foam Advisor, and I provide training and education for the spray foam industry on my website, sprayfoamadvisor.com. And today I'm going to be talking about this topic of using your resources wisely. So first, we have to understand that we have several different types of resources. And internally, our businesses, our different organizations have all different types of resources that we have to figure out how to leverage, how to control, how to allocate, and use in the best possible way for the best possible outcome. So when we take a look at our business, we immediately typically think about capital or cash as a resource. And that's probably the most common when people think of resources that their business have at hand. It's typically some type of monetary resource that they're going to spend on something else. But you've already spent monetary resources on equipment, for example. So equipment is a critical component of the SPF industry, and how we use our equipment is very, very key to business operations, to how profitable we're going to be, to different types of jobs that we're able to do. For example, if you have a rig with a double pump system on it. If you have 2 proportioners on one rig and you have 2 jobs ahead of you and you have your second rig only has 1 proportioner on it, should you send your double proportioner rig to a residential house or to your commercial project that you just won? Those are very big decisions to make, and figuring out how to allocate those resources properly is critical to figuring out the best path to success for your operation, for your business. The same way when it comes to personnel, when it comes to the people on your team, we often don't think of them as a resource, but they can often be one of your biggest assets. And it's critical to understand your team members well enough to know who do you need to send to different projects that come across your scheduling criteria. So some applicators are going to be much better at residential work, and others are going to be much better at commercial work because they have different skill sets. There are different things required on different jobs. And it's important as managers, as schedulers, as crew chiefs, as managers, as business owners to know who are the people that are best suited for different types of work in our business so we can schedule them accordingly to get the most bang for our buck, to get the most out of our internal resources. And then finally, your own personal time is a critical resource that I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth at the end here. But it's very, very important to understand that your time is probably your most valuable resource. Next, we're going to take a look at external resources. And external resources mean all of the potential access to information and content outside of your business. And this means when you refer to your manufacturer, when you contact an equipment distributor like Graco providing this webinar, this is an external resource that gives you the opportunity to get better, to learn, and to gain knowledge in the industry. When you go to SPFA's website and find that they have dozens and dozens of documents created for SPFA members to use, that's an external resource that you can leverage. When you're networking, when you're involved in local networking groups, or even an organization like Spray Foam Worldwide, we're going to hear from Bilben from Spray Foam Worldwide. And when you're involved in an organization like that, you can leverage networking and really gain knowledge and experience and information from people outside of your business, outside of your company, but that have awareness of what you're doing in your space. We can use techniques like social media to gain prospects so that we have more opportunity to sell jobs. So we can use social media to leverage our networks so that we can advertise positions that are available, or advertise equipment that is for sale, or procure equipment. We can use all of these different types of external resources to accomplish different things in our business. And it's critical to understand where to lean on these different resources and how to incorporate them in your business, once again, so you get the most impact out of those resources. Mentors and consultants is another opportunity. If you're having difficulty, if you're having a challenge in one part of your business, you might take 3, 6, 9, 12, maybe 5 years to understand how to overcome a challenge. Whereas you could go to a consultant or a mentor, someone that's already experienced the challenge that you're dealing with, and short circuit that learning cycle by learning from someone else who has already done it. And then finally, training. Once again, like this webinar, like live trainings, like SPFA trainings that you might find at the SPFA convention, like distributor and manufacturer trainings that are held all across the country. That is an external resource that gives you the opportunity, once again, to gain knowledge and skills from other people who have been there and done that before you, and you don't have to learn it from scratch. So understanding how to take control and utilize these resources becomes very powerful. As we shift to the next slide here, I want to go back and talk about your most valuable resource. And your most valuable resource, I mentioned before, was your own personal time. And it is your most valuable resource because we can't make more of it. We can't buy more of it. It's not replenishable. Once you lose it, it's gone. Once that time passes you by, you can't get it back. So what are you spending your time on? It's very important that you spend your time on the high payoff activities that you can do best, the things that are most suited to you. You should not be spending your time on low-hanging fruit that you can either outsource to others, that you can hire assistants to do, things like data entry. You don't want to be spending your time doing data entry work when you might be able to hire that out at $12 or $15 an hour. Your time is way more valuable than that. You want to be using your time to manage your people, to build systems and processes for your business, to go out and close jobs and create more revenue for the organization. You want to use your time where it's most valuable, and that is in the high payoff activities. And this really becomes a critical aspect when you understand the idea of opportunity cost. Every hour that you spend doing something means that's an hour that you don't get to spend doing other things. So you have to be able to say no to things like data entry and find an opportunity to outsource that or hire somebody else to do it so that you can say yes to critical activities like sales, closing deals, and building systems and processes for your business. Now, I've been talking this entire time about resources, and I've got a resource for you. It's an SPF video series that you can get access to at spfwebinar.com. So just make a note of that, and after this webinar, go to the link spfwebinar.com. You can put in your email and name, and you will be emailed a series of videos that I've created about the spray foam insulation industry. Once again, my name is Robert Naini with Spray Foam Advisor, and I'm going to kick this back over to John with Graco to take us to our next speaker. Do we have any questions, John?
Robert, we just had one question. So we're primarily an SPF roofing contractor. How do you see the new 2020 foam products, blowing agents, impacting the success of SPF business?
Yeah, this is a great question. For those of you that may not know, hopefully everybody does know, but we're seeing a phase out of the 245 FA blowing agents and closed cell foams, and we're starting to see a lot more commercialization of HFO blowing agents in the market, in the industry. Well, there's two perspectives really to look at this, from my opinion. We have the macroeconomic perspective to look at, where when you look at the investment that's been poured into the spray foam industry by large companies through consolidation and other techniques, HFO is going to be, these closed cell foams are going to have a lot of support behind them from a lot of the different entities that have been spending money to gain entry into the spray foam market space. So from a large perspective, I definitely think there's going to be money spent by the manufacturers to drive specifications and to drive the use of HFO closed cell foams. On a microeconomic perspective, a lot of this is going to come down to your local markets, and it's going to be a distribution of how much closed cell foam is used in your local market and how fast your local market transitions from a blowing agent like 245 FA to the newer products like HFO. I'll give you an example. Here in Florida, we are predominantly an open cell spray foam market for most applications. Now, when it comes to roofing foam, obviously closed cell foam is the only product used for that scenario, and HFOs are going to completely take over that market over the next couple of years as 245 FA phases out. But when you're talking about the global SPF perspective from a market standpoint, HFO is not going to have as big of an impact in a market like Florida as it will in a market like the Northeast, where we see a lot more closed cell foam used in New York and Massachusetts and throughout those states up in New England. Thanks, John. That was a great question.
John, this is Kurt. Do you want me to take a stab at that also, just as an add-on?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
So let me get back on live here. There we go. Robert's answer was fantastic, and I have a little bit to add to it. First of all, I'm not going to get into the history of HFOs today in detail, but if a lot of people don't know, it's had a rocky road to the market. It was basically mandated, and then the federal judge found EPA's out of their jurisdiction, overturned it after the industry went full on into the transition. That judge was Judge Kavanaugh, among his last duties as a federal court judge before he went to the Supreme Court, which is why people kind of know how things are going to play out if this goes to the Supreme Court, which is probably kind of why it hasn't. You know, the HFOs are great. They were included in our newly published life cycle assessment. So you have quantifiable performance life cycle data on HFO foams as well as HFC foams. We had to make both at the last minute. And those are all on our website. You can use those to supplement your bid packages. We do have a report coming out very soon, a summary report on the new LCA that's going to show how foam is, frankly, over the standard lifetime of a building, which is calculated at 75 years, how spray foam is actually going to be head and shoulders above just about all other insulation products. And there's going to be double digits of cars that have been calculated to be taken off the road because of spray foam after that initial payback period. So there's a lot going on there. And Rick Duncan, our technical director, can if you have questions, email him or call him. But the question was specifically about roofing. So I wanted to just throw in there now, so I don't have to dig into it too much later in my session, that I sit on a weekly Zoom call with all the executive directors of the different roofing associations. We meet every Thursday morning with video. So it's a good reason for everybody to get up, take a shower, and sort of present yourself. But as the roofing industry side of things, they've been quite honestly much more active than the insulation side. We're doing a lot on insulation too, but roofing has its certain benefits. You've got easy trade distancing, your outside exterior of the building. There's a lot of things that you can capitalize on there. And we put out over a dozen policy letters to the feds and to different state governors in terms of their essential status and their open status for construction workers. Frankly, within days of sending these letters, changes have been made. I can't say that we're responsible for it, but the timing is coincidental and great. But on the roofing side, there are initiatives that are coming out right around the corner. We've got a consolidated across the roofing associations, Get America's Roofs Back to Work program that's focusing on workforce development, training, additional funding, and health and safety practices. Part of that is going to be an industry-wide stand down. If you've seen stand downs announced for Associated General Contractors industry and home builders had one as well. Certain period on a date certain. There'll be time set aside for all companies to stand down, spend this time introspectively looking at your policies, procedures, your health and safety practices, what kind of protocols you should be operating on the job site to maintain your essential status and do that safely. And it's going to be a nice complete package. We're going to really work to replicate a lot of the hard work that was done on the roofing side to make sure that's opening up very fast. As we get back, construction is a big part of it. Roofs are a big part of it. And roofs are going to be an initial heavy focus. So there's a lot of good stuff coming for you as a roofing contractor, whoever that was. Insulation is taking, frankly, all the good ideas from that work, and we're going to be applying it over to the insulation side. But on the roofing side, I guess in terms of the prospect of how spray foam is going to be able to solve a lot of these issues and satisfy demand, we're just trying to make sure that we keep access to the market, that we get people out there safely, and that the states and the feds all recognize that roofing is a critical function, particularly as we're going into storm time. As you get storm damage, it's one argument, people are going to be displaced potentially. This is not the time people want people being displaced. So if you have storm damage to your home or to your building, you know, really hard to go social distance in a hotel if you're displaced. So getting the work done to repair that pretty quickly is really important. And I've heard a lot of roofing contractors say that they are sending their foremen into properties that are familiar with a commercial property, for example, a large structure. They get an access code from the property owner. They're going in, checking the roof for leaks. Maintain that customer contact. Do them a favor. Foreman's familiar with that project. Send them over to have them do a walk around. Look at the roof, any leaking, any problems, have them take a general sense of what else is going on, report that back to the property owner. It's going to benefit that relationship and strengthen it, and you're providing a little value-added service to stay in contact with them. So there's a number of things going on, but I wanted to just sort of stipulate on the roofing side, there's some pretty substantial stuff coming out right around the corner.
Great, thank you very much. As we move to Bill, who's next up, I'm going to just launch a quick poll. You can participate in, please. All right. So 99% feel that empowerment motivates you more. So Bill is going to talk about developing your leadership skills. So you can take it away, Bill.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about. Leadership. So leadership is really important to me. It's a skill. It's not a title. It's not management. It's a skill. And I got a lot of appreciation for people who take the time to develop that skill. So I'll just start by identifying what leadership is to me. So leadership to me is it's two things. It's service, serving other people, and influence. And there's really two ways that you can lead. That you can lead a crew, that you can lead a company. You can intimidate, and you can use fear to lead, and people will respond to that. Or you can empower people, and you can inspire people, and you can pull confidence out of people. And that's typically what I choose to do. So we don't have a whole lot of time, so I will try to illustrate how that works in our company. And maybe that will resonate with some of these newer companies. I know there's a lot of great leaders in the group. I see them all the time, but maybe there's a new company starting up, or someone who's looking to develop those skills. So this was a few years ago. We had hired a guy, we'll call him John. And John he was a young guy, maybe 18, 19 years old. Not very motivated. He wasn't a dumb guy. He just, he didn't have much, he didn't have many skills in the construction trade, and he wasn't very motivated to work. And in the first couple of weeks, first even couple months, there's not a whole lot expected out of a new guy. It's that process of learning. But by about the second or third month, I started getting phone calls and text messages about John, and that John wasn't worth a shit, and that John was dead weight, and we got to get him off the crew. And he's hiding, he's on his phone, he's in the bathroom, he's always finding a reason not to do the hard stuff. So John's poisoning the crew, and when that type of poison hits your crew, you got to address it. So I went out to the job site, and I pulled John aside, and I brought John over to the blow truck. Now there's two ways that I could approach John. I could say, John, you're going to straighten up or you're fired, and he might have responded to that. Or I could try to empower him. So I say to John, today you're taking over on the blow truck. And we were working on some big buildings. We had some big attics to blow. So, it was an all-day job in the back of that rig, in the back of that truck. And I said, John, you're taking over the blow truck today. And you're going to treat this thing like you bought it. This is your new office. And, let's climb up in there, and I'm going to show you what works for me, and give you some tips on how to do well back here. So we go up in the truck, and I start explaining to him, like, this is what works for me. This is where I've seen success, and you can figure it out for yourself. But here's my expectations. I expect you to keep this truck clean, like you bought it. I expect you to keep the bag count on point, perfect every time. And I expect you to never let that hopper run empty. And for anyone who has a blow truck, runs a blow crew, it doesn't seem that important, but it is important. If you got a guy in the attic and that hopper's running empty, it's frustrating and it's eating up time. And rarely does a rookie ever do well in the back of a blow truck day one. You'd think it's just cutting bags and filling hoppers, but running the back of a blow truck when it's 90 degrees out and you've got a truck full that's going to get emptied, it's a workout. There's a lot of work. There's a system to that. There's a system to everything. There's a system to the back of that truck too. So I tell him, this is what I expect of you. It starts today, and I know you're going to do good, and you're going to make me proud. I hopped out of the truck, and I left John in there, and John was off. And every time I walked past, John would be busy doing his thing back there. In between loading the hopper, he's sweeping up the truck. He's sweeping up the floor. He's kind of organizing some stuff too. John started to take ownership in the back of this truck. by the end of the day, John had killed it. He did really, really good back there. And the crew was even praising him. You know, that he stayed on it all day. He didn't let the hopper run out, not once. And I made sure to let John know that. And I pulled John aside and I said, John, of all the rookies we've ever hired, you're the only one who went all day and didn't let the hopper run empty. Like, good job. And so what happened there? You know, how did John go from the dog to be kicked on the crew to a valuable asset? John felt empowered. John felt inspired. He felt like he was part of the team, and I put it on him in a way where he knew that I trusted him in that position, and he wanted to please me. He wanted to make sure that I was happy with what he did. So John did really good back there, and I could have went the other way. You know, I could have said, John, here's your last shot, and if you don't get it right, you're done, and put all that pressure on him. And instead, I empowered John, and my goal was to build John's confidence, and it worked. And John was, you know, the confidence that he built, and moving forward, even the hopper never ran empty. John did a great job running the back of that truck, and his confidence was up, and he felt like he was part of the team. Now he's being more productive in all parts of the company. If somebody needed him, he was putting in those efforts. He wanted to prove himself. So that's the power of really trying to pull the confidence out of somebody, inspire somebody to be better at what they're doing. And we only have 10 minutes here, so I have a few tips that might help some people. In no order, they're just some things that maybe you could put to use even tomorrow. So the first thing is the tough talks. If you're the leader of a crew or a company, you're going to have the tough conversations. And when you have those conversations, I think is important. And I've learned those through other people's mistakes. You don't want to pull a guy aside at 6:37 in the morning before you send him out to a job site and have that hard conversation with him. Unless you know exactly how that conversation is going to go, it's probably best to have it at the end of the day when you can control that conversation in a way where you have enough time to work through it. If that conversation doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go first thing in the morning, you just sent a guy out with a piss poor attitude, and he's probably going to tear down everyone else's attitude. So where did production and profits go that day? So timing on those tough conversations, I think, is important. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is all eyes are on you. Whether you know they're on you or not, people are paying attention, and they're going to do what you do. So if you're stressed out, they're going to be stressed out. If you're sloppy, they're going to be sloppy. You know, if you're losing your temper on them, there's a good chance that they're going to lose their temper on the people beneath them, or maybe even a customer. So just always remember, all eyes are on you at all times. And then the third one, which is the most important one to me, and that is never miss an opportunity to empower someone. Never miss an opportunity to lift someone up and boost their confidence and let them know when they're doing good. And sometimes I need to, even be reminded of that, when you see somebody going that extra effort or really putting all their effort in, let them know. Because when you let them know, that's empowering them. And when you empower someone, like I said before, incredible things happen. And that's where loyalty comes from. So that's my message on leadership. You can take it back, John.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. So next up, we've got Kurt to talk about the value of industry community.
Is this thing on?
Yep.
Are we on? All right, someone gonna let me know? I'm sorry. All the Joe Biden fans out there, don't send me the hate mail. It's just all in good humor. It's Friday. It's been a very long and difficult week. Couldn't help it. I had to take the shot. So thank you, first of all, to Graco. Thank you to all the attendees that took time to join today. Thank you to everyone that's working hard. It's weird times. it is all life and death really now. Before we talked about these things, but now it's physically life and death, and it's life and death of your company and life and death of your business and your livelihood and all the people that depend on you. These are stressful, complicated times. So we're trying to keep a handle on all of it at SPFA. We're trying to make sense of it. We have a plan that we're working on as much as anyone can have a plan on how things are going today. But we're on it. So that's the best I can promise you right now. I have a couple of things that John just put up on the screen that I'll be talking about. And I may or may not stay within that order because all best intentions of having the presentation streamlined for today kind of go out the window when the day gets super busy. Everyone needs something on a Friday. I'm going to start instead of where I was going to start and just report to you on some recent developments. Since yesterday, we got this information. I was on a call this morning with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We were going over the new changes for potential phase 4 of the COVID relief. So I wanted to share a couple of those things with you as they are so fresh. I want to let you know that the within the context of the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, everyone's hopefully familiar with at this point, which is supposed to run for 8 weeks. There's all kinds of criteria. Please read the certification document well. But the new bill that we're looking at on the House side expands that 8 weeks out to 24 weeks. And I'm going off some notes here because I didn't have time to clean it up. So we're looking at a potential of 8 to 24 weeks. Senate's not really on board with that length of time, but it's probably going to end up being something somewhere in the middle. We're seeing some other changes coming. The 75% expense that you have to hit on salary for loan forgiveness is causing some problems across multiple industries. They're probably going to adjust that or get rid of it in some way and allow more discretionary spending of those funds by the companies that have applied and granted and received that money in order for you to be able to spend it more your discretion, but still qualify for this to be a forgivable loan, which basically means a grant. They're looking to extend it through the end of the year, which is great. And I still don't know if it's going to be enough. Nobody does. They are not proposing to put more money in because they ate through all the money that they had in the beginning. And then they put more money in. I guess it was $358 billion, if I remember right, on the last round. They thought it was going to go like wildfire. It didn't. Nobody really knows why. It's not because companies have been satiated in their need for money. Some have been maybe scared off on the terms, getting an audit or whatever else. But they're not looking to put more money in. They have several billion left to spend in the program. Average loan size has dropped to about $73,000 a loan and is falling. They're moving to focus also on the employer retention tax credit, making some changes on that. I don't know what they all are yet. They have an employee hiring tax credit that's in the works. As you are going to be filling new jobs potentially, some of those people are going to have to be trained. It's going to take time to do them if you can't get people back that you had. And they're looking at developing a tax credit for that. Unemployment is looking to maybe move from 26 to 39 months. I'm sorry, weeks. And the extension of the CARES Act, they're looking at that $600 federal on top of state because it is a very contentious issue. The point of this program was to pay people to not work, to flatten the curve, not to keep it like this forever, and not to make people better off not working than they were when they were working. So it's well known that that's a problem, and that is being discussed. Supposed to be guidance out on April 26th on the PPP loan forgiveness program. That has not come out. It has people a little itchy, but they did put out guidance saying that anything less than $2 million is not going to be audited. That guidance came out middle of the week this week, and I got a link to that on our website. You also have the Main Street Lender Program, which is done through a bank. So there's additional things there. The emergency disaster loans at the SBA program have long run out of money. They're not taking any more applications. And the only people they're taking applications from is agriculture. And that program is yet to see what's going to happen with it. There were some comments about what getting back means. We're not looking at the fringes. We're not looking at the fringes of people and companies that are not having a lot of issue right now. We're not looking at the fringes of people who are just never going to come out of their house or have anything to do until there's a vaccine. There is a vast middle that the government and associations, the chamber and folks are focusing on. That's where the coming back is going to happen, is the vast majority in the middle that are ready to safely and responsibly re-engage their life. And the last thing is, as you reopen, please read the CDC guidance for reopening, as well as make sure to pay attention to what your state says. These are going to be the two primary drivers on how states are going to reopen and how you're going to reopen your business. You're going to be looking at sanitation requirements, social distancing, trade distancing, and having certain protocols that you're going to need to follow on job sites that may involve contact tracing software that's already being put in place. But I'll talk more about that in a second. So anyway, that's as of this morning. And while that has almost consumed all my time, it wasn't what I was brought on here to talk about. I want to just really put in a quick capsule, the perspective from SPFA. In terms of our response, we did develop the website, and thank you for all the nice comments of folks leading up to here. I appreciate that. We hope it's a resource for you. It covers federal, covers state by state. There are trackers on there of the operating status of states as they change, which is happening quite frequently now. There are evidence of our advocacy work with some of the letters. We don't have all the advocacy letters that we've been churning out, but a number of them are on there in terms of governors and federal funding. And it really, that comes around our advocacy strategy. All right, we're trying to keep our advocacy strategy relatively simple and nimble because of the times. So we're focusing on, first of all, access. Access requires that you basically be recognized as an essential worker. If you can work, if you want to work, and you're able to work, you should be able to. There are a number of people that can work that don't want to. They have pre-existing conditions, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, respiratory challenges, whatever it might be. Those are something that are going to have to be dealt with. But if you're in a position to work and you want to work, we've been working our butts off to make sure that you can. And how you do that, first thing is by being an essential worker. Construction is included in essential worker status. If anyone is unfamiliar, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, a little agency that nobody really knew even existed or paid attention to before all this, part of the Department of Homeland Security, they defined really early on what an essential worker would be by different markets. You can look at it on their website. All that stuff is also on our COVID page. And initially they created a certificate that you could carry as an essential worker. Got floated all around the internet, lots of abuse. They didn't want any more. They took it back. Each industry was able to do something of their own, which we have also posted on the website. So if you're traveling to or from a job site, or if you're on a job site and you get stopped, there's no evidence of states looking for credentials right now for this, but you do have a form letter that we created and put on SPFA letterhead. It's on the website. It's under the CISA guidance on the federal page. And basically what it does is we excerpted all the construction industry related categories that would relate to us that we think of, chemical manufacturing included, but also the construction side. And you can checkbox the ones that apply to you, and you can self-attest that that is what you're doing, and print that out and have your folks carry it around should you need to demonstrate it to anybody. But regardless, we're working with a number of those federal agencies. We're trying to stay on top of them to see what changes are coming. That's where a lot of these things are being driven from. In terms of the strategy that I was talking about, first one being access, second one being maintaining it. How do we do it safely? So we've tried to monitor the OSHA guidance, CDC guidance. They keep putting these guidance documents and revised documents out. People need to be aware of this. We're putting these up on the website. Please consume them. Please talk about them with your staff. Toolbox Talks, whatever it is. A number of organizations also, NRCA in particular, and NAHB on their Construction Industry Safety Council programs, all have fantastic toolbox talks. Too much for me to replicate and condense back onto our site, but we have links to them. So there's a lot of model toolbox talks on a lot of this stuff, whether you're in the residential, insulation industry or the roofing industry. Please download those. Just go to the site, our site, and go out to the folks that you need under industry partners. Access, essential. Do it safely. It's a privilege right now. It's not a right. We all have a role to play in not seeing a resurgence. And I'll get into liability of stuff in a second, but funding. So we've pushed for more and more funding as much as we can. We know that there's not an unlimited amount of funding in the federal government or in the states, but we have to sort of, balance this out to get through this heavy part and see what the midsummer looks like. And people are going to need some support to do that. So we've pushed to make sure that the funding includes who we think it should include. And then, of course, additional education and training. So spend a lot of time on OSHA. We have, from a spray foam perspective, taken our PCP program, our professional certification program, the courses that are typically offered at the show, and rolled those out online. Those are free to SPFA members. And free to PCP enrolled professionals, but also out of respect for the companies that supported those employees to get certified. Any company that employs a PCP certified enrollee of any kind, from assistant through master of any level, will have access to all these courses. We put them together quick. I want to thank all the members that took time when all this was happening over the last several weeks, away from their families and their businesses, to spend hours on the phone with Kelly narrating these slides. It's not super exciting, but it's all the information you need. If it's on the test, it's in the slides. And if it's in the slides, they read it to you. We broke these up into portions that you can consume on the online delivery system, as well as the accompanying handbooks. It's all been split into the sections. So instead of a 5-hour video and a 150-page handbook, you now have 20-minute sections, section A, section B, whatever it might be, along with the cut and pasted section of the study guide that relates to that portion of the class. So that's all there. We close that loop by allowing, we've had for years online testing, website testing that's available to anybody 24/7. You can now sign up for it online. You can register. You can study for free through us, and you can take the test. And Kelly's rolling out some COVID deals to make, because we recognize that people are struggling just like we are, and a lot of people are. But we need to make that education available during this weird and difficult time. And we'll see what happens later. So if you're interested in any of that, get with Kelly. We will set up non-member discounts as well. It's not going to be free like members and enrollees, but we're going to chop the price pretty significantly because we know folks need it. So anyway, going from certification and training and investing in yourself and your people, do the toolbox talks, download those. We're working on some tech things. Rick has put out a recent tech document. It's on our website for rig shutdown procedures, whether short or long-term, emergency. There's certain things you need to pay attention to if you're shutting a rig down due to some unfortunate fall off in its use. And you got to do that right. So the equipment committee and the safety committee worked, and they put some of that out. We're also putting out an infographic on working safely for spray foam contractors during COVID-19, and a number of other things are in the works. We also have our survey. Many of you have participated in the survey. Thank you for that. That's 1.0. That has been published by 3 magazines. They are all desperate for the information, so you'll be able to read those. Spray Foam Magazine is one of them. Roofing Contractor is the other one, and I think it's Walls and Ceilings, but I'm not 100%. But those articles are coming out if you want to know how our survey looked. We're going to be opening up Survey 2.0 shortly, because when we put that survey out the first time, most of the stuff that is in the world right now didn't even exist. All these federal programs, we need to assess difficulty in accessing them, current day challenges that people are facing that maybe they weren't facing 2 months ago. We need to edit a bunch of these questions. We're working on that. So Survey 2.0 coming out soon. I want to point out, I mentioned the roofing stuff earlier, a lot going on there on the builder side, a couple of interesting things. I was on a builder's webinar yesterday, and they are not implementing a lot of incentives yet for new homes, which means they're not really feeling the heat all that much yet, surprising. Upgrade requests are down about 20%, but there was a lot of talk among some other folks about what new things are being asked for. People are spending more time in their home. They're working from home. Twitter announced anyone can work from home indefinitely. This is going to be the way of the future, whether we like it or not, for the foreseeable future. And people are asking for last-minute changes to have bump outs to include home offices. Maybe they need 2 home offices at opposite ends of the home for the husband and the wife, whatever it might be. This orientation to being at home more during the day is creeping into builder designs and requests from customers, which I find interesting. it raises the next question. What do we need to be thinking about? All right. Well, I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole, but if everyone's working from home, they used to spend 8 to 10 hours, 16 hours in the office, depending on who you are. And your thermostat would be on program and you would save a lot of energy during the day. And that's not happening anymore because it's getting hot. People are going to have AC running all day because they're going to be home. They're going to have AC running heat all winter because they're going to be home all day. Big energy costs. What does that mean for spray foam? I mean, we have a pretty good value proposition on performance. What are these new changes in the world going to mean in terms of its impact on our marketing of the product and the appeal of the product that we have to make sure that we position it for so that we're successful when the demand is returning? So anyway, interesting little bit, tidbit on the residential side. Couple other things here. Yep, I know we have PPE shortages. We're still dealing with that. There's some questions on reoccupancy on residential. If people are lucky enough to still have residential business, you've got some challenges working out customer absence and reoccupancy, where they're going to go. If you have up to 24 hours, you might want to work with a local hotel or motel and vet them before you refer a customer to them to know that you're sending them into a safe property where the masks and disinfection and thing are going to be taking place, so you can reassure your customers that it's going to be okay to be out of their home for whatever period of time you need them to be. That raises another question of liability. I talked a little bit about this with these guys yesterday. You've got a number of liability issues. You have a liability issue with bringing people back to work. You've got the difference between telling people that they need to come back to their job and asking them. Most of the conservative guidance from law firms right now and accounting firms is ask employees to come back to work. And it's at their discretion. If you tell them to come back to work and they get sick, it's, there's the different safe harbor laws and bills and things popping up all over the country, but it's not clear right now who is liable and what level of liability you have. If you are on a job and you get other trades sick and they can trace it back to someone on your crew being sick, you've got liability issues. If you get a customer sick and they can trace it back in the time frame that had nobody else interacting with, and your contact trace goes back to the spray foam crew that was there, you're going to probably have some issues. This is why you need to overcommit to just going way overboard on your safety protocols, your gloves, masks, respirators, managing customer interaction, managing your trades on a job site among each other and with other trades. This is really sensitive stuff, and you don't want to get it wrong. So please, we're paying attention to a lot of this as the safe harbor laws are going to start to emerge. It's probably going to be a patchwork quilt, but it's something that you really need to think about. I must be way over time. What can I wrap up with? We are still dealing with a number of regular issues. Not everything stops because of COVID. There are some regulatory agencies around the country that are proceeding seemingly like nothing is happening. So nice for them, but hard for us. So we got to make time for that. Codes, there's an upcoming code season. Proposals are already in the works. There are pro spray foam proposals. And as always, there are anti-spray foam proposals. They're never pitched that way, but their outcome from some of our competing industries could result in not spray foam friendly codes. We always need to stay on top of that to make sure that there's a voice against it. Those are ongoing. We're still dealing with the termite issues actively. Just today, we were talking about being back in Georgia. They're putting that meeting back together. We don't know if it's going to be virtual or in person, but there is a building code proposal in Georgia that changes the accessibility of spray foam in residential properties that's been submitted by the Georgia Pest Control Association. And the head of the Georgia Pest Control Association is also an Orkin guy, and they're not really big fans of spray foam. So we are dealing with a very incestuous, difficult situation, and that fight's going to have to continue because they're not letting up either. We have some LTTR and thin slice R-value test method issues going on in ASTM that are going to impact people. As I mentioned, we're still working on the LCA and getting the summary back together because people need that. We have a new website coming out. The convention's going full steam ahead. We're planning on it happening. So we'll see y'all in San Antonio in February, one way or another, but we're going to be there. And we have a board election what a weird time to have a board election. I mean, you want to talk about leadership when you need to step up when the world's going crazy and you're trying to save your own company and you're trying to protect your family. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of people we have step forward next month, actually this month in the nominations, to see who wants to be the next generation of leaders during what is undoubtedly going to be an extraordinarily difficult time for our industry, but also for SPFA, because we are reflexively impacted by everything that's impacting you. Lastly, I'll throw out that we're continuing to work with our partners, AGC, Associated General Contractors, NAHB, the builders, NRCA with the roofers, BOMA, the building operating and management folks. It's important to pay attention to external entities and influences that are hitting our industry, because what they do is what you're going to have to do. So a lot of this stuff is public, available. Go to the BOMA website, see what they're telling their building owners and what they're giving them in terms of materials to share with their tenants, and see how that affects you. We're trying to pay attention to that as well and interpret it. Last two things are actually just about 2 seconds worth. One, happy Mental Health Month. May is Mental Health Month. SPFA has signed on to the Construction Industry Suicide Council pledge. We're going to be doing work over the course of the month to prevent suicides in the construction industry, and maybe that is more relevant and important now more than ever. It kind of chokes me up a little bit. It's a tough topic, but it's important, and things may get better before they get worse. And we want to be there for folks, and you all need to be there for each other because it's sort of a no shit time. So that's an important message. Mental Health Month during May, and watch for new changes coming. We're going to schedule an SPFA town hall in the next several weeks to talk about a lot of these things by webinar. But one of those things are digital strategies. So we're going to have a webinar by a company that does 3D modeling for businesses, for properties, where you can take 4 pictures of the 4 sides of a building. They will render for you a 3D model of that property. You get a wireframe, every measurement of every piece of that building. It's actually very affordable. You can use it to supplement your estimates and your bids by having actual numbers of features of the house, roof size, square footage, vertical wall, exterior wall size, square footage. Some of these things is going to make you look top shelf. They're actually surprisingly cheap, and you can use this to dictate the conversations that you're having with your customers. We're also working on getting a webinar from either ICC or somebody else that's appropriate on the use of virtual inspections, which are growing around the country. I want to say Oakland County in California has probably the best one that I've seen. 4-page document. If you just Google this stuff, you'll find a great 4-page document that gets in from how to conduct your virtual inspection and permitting inspection process. Download this, scan this QR code, have your stuff, charged up, go through this process. This is what it's going to be like. It's going to be happening more and more. So for our industry to be successful, we need to have a digital strategy as well. And the last one is, I mentioned earlier, trade distancing. There's a lot of software and technology out there right now that's already being put into place that is being used to track trade distancing on a job site, where you're going to wear a unit, it's connected to your phone. If you get within 8 feet or whatever the proximity warning is of any other person on that property, whether they're a floor above you, on the other side of the wall, or wherever, it's going to go off and let you know. It's going to record it. And then if down the road, if someone gets sick, this documentation is going to be used for contact tracing back over that period of time to figure out where that person got sick. And the government's trying to implement a lot of that right now, but the construction industry is voluntarily moving that way, and there are more and more technologies coming out every day. It could go to reducing some of your liability. It could go to adding to customer confidence, and it may be part of the new norm, whether you like it or not. I'm still on the fence, but there's a whole lot of new stuff coming out like that, and I have blown through my time. I want to apologize to Mo. I know everything he's going to say is awesome because I've heard it, and I want to hand off to him. And thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thanks to Graco for organizing this.
You bet. Great information, Kurt. Thank you for those updates. And yeah, a lot of tough topics as well. So Appreciate you bringing all that up. Now we turn to biohacking for spray foam applicators with Muhammed Alibashev. It's some interesting stuff. Mo, do you want me to put that poll up right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
What happened to working out, John? You didn't put the working out in. I told you if everyone wants to lie, they're going to lie with working out.
That's right. I didn't have time. Well, we'll stop that there and just share the results so everyone can see. All right, Mo, go ahead.
Those are some great results. I'd like to thank Kurt. That was some great topics he discussed. I want to thank Bill as well, and Robert. Thank you for your time. Thanks for everyone for tuning in and listening to us right now. My topic is biohacking for spray foam applicator success. Biohacking means using your mind and body for optimal performance. Now, do you guys ever feel exhausted, grumpy, depressed, muscle cramps and pains, joint aches, cognitive issues, such as loss of memory or motor coordination is a bit lagging, digestive issues, stomach issues, or bloating? I can tell you now that's exactly how I used to feel after a long day of spraying foam in a Tyvek suit. Everything I just said is directly linked to being dehydrated, which means we should be consuming more water. Just like many of you, I'm on the tools for long hours and consecutive days, even though there's like a lot more sales guys here. My search for longevity started when I was a teenager and self-employed. I would work hard all month to barely break even. Then with a combination of working smarter and harder, I developed healthy habits that have brought me to my current successful state, secrets that I would like to share with all my fellow foamers. I knew that at a young age, my only option to get ahead was to outwork and outperform. Let's face it, if you get a bad night of sleep, 1 meal in you all day, barely any water, and worked a 16-hour intensive labor, you wake up feeling like you've been sparring with Mike Tyson. Your whole body aches and you are sore and in pain. As spray foam applicators, we always need to be sharp, focused, self-driven, self-motivated, and positive. I like to compare foamers to elite special forces and Olympic triathletes because us foamers go the distance every day. Every other trade's job becomes aerobic and repetitive. Not us. Our jobs are intensive and explosive. We also use our brains to a higher degree. We have to work with generators, compressors, reactors, pumps, hoses, and guns. We carry a hose, we twist, we turn in tight spots, we do acrobatic moves to get to certain spots, up and down ladders. The list goes on. I started researching the diets of elite athletes, and the first thing that caught my attention was the focus on hydration for optimal performance. Water really is the miracle drug. I really can't think of any other trade that sweats and perspires on a level we do. So our water consumption must be on point. How much water should we drink? Well, the amount of water you drink is proportional to your body weight. For each pound of body weight, you should be drinking half a fluid ounce to a fluid ounce of water. That's right. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should drink anywhere from 100 ounces of water to 200 ounces of water. That roughly comes to anywhere just under a gallon to over a gallon of water. When I wake up in the morning, I chug half a liter of water at room temperature. It takes less calories to absorb and easier on your body. When you drink cold water, it burns more calories, and I like maintaining my calories for the long day ahead of me. After you drink water, I go brush my teeth. By the time I get to the kitchen and cook food, it's already been 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and you have enough in you to eat some more food. Water is the primary means of removal of toxicity from your body. It flushes body waste, mainly in urine. It lubricates your joints. It allows you to breathe easier. It regulates your body temperature. It regenerates body tissue. It acts as a shock absorber for the brain and the spinal cord. It converts food to components needed for digestion and survival. It helps deliver oxygen all over your body. water is a major component of all your body parts. So please, let's focus on drinking lots of water and make it a habit for the next month. And let me know how you feel. I would like to hear your personal results. John, let's go ahead with the second poll.
So I may have stopped
like
it
that.
before everybody, but yeah, that's the results so far.
No, those are great results, man. Like, not too many mouth breathers out there. A lot of people like to breathe through their nasal. So do you guys ever struggle with neck and shoulder pain, headaches, poor sleep, snoring, rib pain, shortness of breath on a job site, dental issues, and bad breath? Each of these conditions can be caused or worsened by poor breathing patterns. One of the quickest and easiest ways to improve overall health is to adopt proper, efficient breathing pattern. By nature, we are designed to breathe from our noses. Our noses is the first defense against viruses and bacteria, but only when you breathe through it. The microscopic hairs called cilia work with mucus to trap pathogens. The results, snot, boogers, and a healthier, happier you. Nasal breathing will also act as a natural air filter, cleaning the air before it reaches the lungs. In our line of work, we are exposed to dusty environments. Your nose also warms and humidifies the air, which helps reduce the risk of colds. In colder climates, it will heat up the air before you breathe it in. In hotter climates, it cool it down before you breathe it in. Nose breathing improves stamina. Breathing through your nose enhances endurance. One study shows nose breathing reduces breathing rates by over 50% and decreases perceived exertion by 60%, which means you might be able to work out harder and longer if you simply close your mouth. Nasal breathing will give you more oxygen, and oxygen is vital for us. Nasal breathing forces you to use your diaphragm, the body's main muscle of respiration. The diaphragm is also an important postural and core stabilization muscle. The coolest benefit is that nitric acid oxide is added from your nasal pathways, keeps the blood pressure low, and blood flow to the organs go up. It also stimulates the parasympathetic nerve system, which makes you experience less stress, and most important for us foamers and the rest of us is rest and recovery, because every comfortable breathing, take it to the next level by taping your mouth shut at night. Patrick McQueen of Oxygen Advantage says most people breathe through their mouths all night long. That's 8 hours of poor oxygenation and zero nitric oxide, which could explain why you might be feeling groggy in the morning. He believes it's possible to correct the problem by pressing low adhesive paper tape, such as 3M Micropro, lightly over your mouth. If you're uncomfortable with the tape, you can use a stop snoring strap. The tape might fall off at night, but you should notice a dramatic improvement in energy throughout the day. Use the tape until you're breathing through your nose all night. Your mouth will have plenty of saliva in the morning, and you will feel refreshed. Chronic dental issues and bad breath are also related to poor breathing habits. If we constantly breathe through the mouth, pathogenic bacteria in the mouth is given a ready supply of oxygen to grow and duplicate. Additionally, these bacteria thrive off a dry environment, and the mouth becomes very dry with chronic mouth breathing. When the mouth stays closed, saliva is able to flush out the oral disease, causing bacteria from the mouth and into the digestive tract, where that can't be expelled. Amazingly, many indigenous tribes who breathe primarily through their noses and speak less frequently have very low levels of dental issues. If you follow these few simple steps, and it will make you feel alive and amazingly good. Just remember, when you feel good, you do good. When you do good, you care for others. When you care for others, you become a better leader. When you become a better leader, you build an effective teams. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you
John?
very much, Muhammad. I appreciate it. There is one more poll here. While we wrap up. Actually, there's two more polls. We'd appreciate some feedback. So what do you think of the webinar? And then we'll have one more poll after that.
Thanks for letting the panelists vote, John. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Top marks for Bills.
No, thank you, Muhammad, for that awesome information, and to all the speakers today. We really appreciate your time. I asked, and you didn't hesitate to come on and share some advice. So that's really, really great. This last slide is how you can show your support for our speakers. You can join the community of Spray Foam Worldwide on Facebook. By the way, we'll get to a couple remaining questions after this. You can continue learning on Spray Foam Advisor. Email Robert at sprayfoamadvisor.com. You could show Muhammad some love by giving his Facebook page a like. It's on the screen there. To learn more about what SBFA is doing and to stay in touch, you can visit sprayfoam.org or follow SBFA on Facebook. And then finally, to follow Graco at facebook.com/Graco Sprayfoam to get notified when we do more educational webinars. So thank you everyone for attending, and we're going to get to some remaining comments here while I share the results of this poll. Oh, sorry. Do this one. Got one more poll here. All right, I've got a question for, as you guys are doing that poll, I've got a question for Bill. What books would you recommend on leadership?
Books.
And we have another question for you as well. So,
all right. Well, leadership really starts with self-development, and there's so many I could say. My advice with picking out a book is, if you've never read, self-development books or leadership books, pick one that is a #1 seller, and then pick one that you've never heard of before, because you're going to find value in both of them. And not everything you read, you're going to put into practice. And you can take one book and read it 10 times, and every time you read it, you're going to pull something else out of it. So my advice on the books is just pick one, any book.
great. All right. So this is from Bart. I want to ask Bill, during this work stoppage and quarantine times, what are ways you can keep your crew morale up?
Morale. So I'm a pretty optimistic person, and in the worst times, I'm always seeing the silver linings. I'm always trying to find an opportunity. So when I'm, regarding the crew, if you work for us, you become part of the family, and I'm not going to let something bad happen to my family, and I'm not going to let something bad happen to my crew. So, in a worst case scenario, everything gets wiped away. We all got to start over. Okay, I guess it's time to start over. I don't let fear dictate my decisions, and if I had to start over, I would bring my crew with me. So my job would be to just make sure that they know that even in the worst case scenarios, I still got your back.
Great, thank you. So from Diana Brower, thank you for the comment. It's not really a question. I want to comment on Muhammad. I have implemented a program for food and water on the job for the guys. It is so important to have the employees nourished and keep them safe on the job. Some of the young guys did not bring food before, so we set out to provide the basics to keep them healthy. So thank you for that comment. There is another good comment that I wanted to get to. Yeah.
I'd like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, even at our shop, we have like instant oatmeal, and we have protein bars for the guys. And we encourage them to take it because I prefer them to eat and be more productive than starve themselves. So I commend, good for her for doing that. We do the same thing.
Yep. Got a question for Kurt. Do you have any thoughts on remote inspections?
On remote inspections. Well, I had mentioned that briefly in my flurry of stuff earlier. I think that it's like anything. Work still has to be done that can be getting done. You need to facilitate that as much as possible. If you're in a particularly draconian state where a lot of this is being reduced, you need to find ways around that to keep work getting done. And if you're in a state that's not so draconian, you still need to find stuff that is going to work and facilitate the job schedule that is going to work in the crazy world that we live in. And resources for permitting and inspection offices were already so woefully inadequate to get the job done that they needed to do before that there's really no different now with all of this chaos thrown in. So I want to say that, you see these changes, people talk about them over months, over years. Someone throws them out like, that's a good idea. It's never going to catch on. Sometimes it takes something like this to make stuff that people have been floating around actually figure out how to work. Thank God they were floated and that there's some kind of baseline to build these things up on. But I think that it's going to work. I think it's going to be used a lot more. I think it's going to stick around after all this. I keep doing this after all this. I think it's going to be helpful to facilitate scheduling. And I think that it's going to be sufficient. I mean, I've heard of some places that they're allowing the contractors to self-attest to the inspection. And they have to sign off some things, and they're still going to carry some liability or responsibility later if something goes down. The thing that I hear the most is no matter what you're doing, document, document, document. Write it down. Write down what happened. Write down what you're thinking at the time that you're writing this down, because it might come back in a legal issue. It might come back in a financial issue. It might come back if you're dealing with some of the loan programs and, you know, the PPP and these rules change constantly. If you get an audit on something, or if you're in a weird situation, having this stuff written down when right now your head is full of so many different things. You know, am I going to exist next month? Is our business going to be here? Is anyone in my family going to die? These are important things that we need to make sure that, sorry, I'm getting a phone call on my computer. That's weird. It's probably someone on the line here joking with me. But, you know, document it, because you're not going to remember stuff. And a lot of this is going to be open to interpretation later, whether it's remote inspections or federal funds to keep your business floating. Document. And I think that as we see in some cases, if you Google remote, construction inspections, you're going to see a wide variety of stuff. Like I said, maybe it's walking around with FaceTime and your phone in your hand. Other jurisdictions have more advanced stuff. Like I told you, that 4-pager, I want to say it's Oakland, but I can't say for sure. Really great put together. You know, scan this QR code, download this. This is what we're using. This is what to expect. I think that those are going to be the leaders, and they're going to work out the glitches, and they're going to find a way to make it happen. And it's going to be part of our normal life going forward. And I kind of think that's a good thing.
Excellent. Thanks, Kurt, for addressing that. Well, we've run a little bit over time, but I just wanted to again say thank you to all the speakers today. We really appreciate it, and thank you for everyone who registered to attend this. I appreciate all the questions and feedback, and look forward to the next one. So have a great weekend.
Along with all the panelists, we were talking about it, John. We're all honored with the invite, and honored that people would allow us to be put in front of them and listen to us for a little while. And we're honored that you would think of us. And I'm honored to be sitting virtually alongside all these great folks, and look forward to doing it as much as needed.
And John, as a bonus for the participants and anybody that watches this later, I'm a book guy. I've got tons of books, so I have plenty of book recommendations. Think and Grow Rich. That's my recommendations for leadership. StrengthsFinder 2.0. That's one of my recommendations for management. the seven habits of highly effective people. Amazing book, probably one of my favorites of all time. And then a sales book. A lot of people don't ask for sales books very often, but this is my favorite sales book ever, The Ultimate Sales Machine.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much again, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks,
You
John.
also. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.